Hey guys, welcome to the JavaScript crash course, and I'll teach you JavaScript programming from zero in 1 hour approximately. So first of all, what is JavaScript? JavaScript is a scripting language, and what can you do in JavaScript, and what is the demand, and what is the, like, if you are proficient, what is the salary in the JavaScript, and we'll discuss about it right now. So first of all, what can you do in JavaScript? You can be a full stack developer in JavaScript because right now JavaScript has much more to offer. You can write backend and front end applications both in JavaScript without any need of learning any server side programming language. So, and JavaScript is also an object oriented language now because after the introduction of ECMAScript in JavaScript, you can now write classes and do polymorphism and those kind of things in JavaScript too. You can write interfaces if you use TypeScript, and that is another form of JavaScript. So if you search on Google, there is a lot of demand of JavaScript developers right now, and there are a lot less developers to complete that demand right now. So if you are on the track of learning JavaScript and be proficient in it and make a career in it, now this is the time right now. About some features of JavaScript, you can create websites and control the document, insert the elements in it, remove existing elements in it without reloading the page, make the web page more interactable. Like whenever a user clicks on a button or do some kind of interaction, you can make a response without reloading the page, and you can like create animations, do form validations without sending the data to the server side and wait for a response. Like you can, when user inputs an invalid thing in the input, you can show the response quickly over there that hey, you can change this right now because this is not a valid input. So you can also write server-side applications because right now there are a lot of frameworks out there in JavaScript that are written exclusively only for server-side, like Express.js or Next.js, and in the front end you can use Vue JS, React JS, or Google's Angular JS framework, any kind of framework. And there are a lot much more too that you can use to develop full stack applications right now. Another thing is you can also create mobile applications in JavaScript, and you don't need to know any kind of programming language like Java, Kotlin, or Swift for iOS and Android. You can just simply use a framework, React Native, written by Facebook. You can also search for it online, React Native, and you can write native applications in React Native. That's what it's called. And you can compile that application for both iOS and Android. You can search for React Native in Google and go to reactnative.dev. And this is basically a open source framework, and you can just simply start developing mobile applications using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, just like this. And that's it for the overview, and let's get started. What are variables, and how can you create variables in JavaScript? So variables are the basic key in the programming in which you can save data and retrieve it later, or you can do some kind of operations on them. How can we create JavaScript variables? Is that you can type var keyword and the name of variable and use the assignment operator and then the value which you want to assign to that variable. Now, if I want to retrieve the variable's value, I have to type that variable's name. There we go. I can create as many as variable as I want and assign them values and use them later. And if I want to create one or two or more variables in the same line, I can separate them by comma. So we are only using var keyword once and declaring two more variables. D equals to 3. There we go. C has 2 and D has 3. Now, there is another keyword for declaring variables in JavaScript that is a little bit different in the background mechanism, but does the same work as the var keyword, and that is let keyword. You can use the same use it as in the same way as we use var keyword. You can type let and then the variable's name, and you can assign any kind of value. There we go. Now, what are the variable types in JavaScript? Now, currently, what variables we declared, the A, B, C, D, and E, they were of type number. If I type of, now this is a function I will introduce them to you later, but you can use this function to see what is the type of the variable. You can give it the variable and it will show you the variable's type. Now we have the type number currently of the variable A. What are the other types in JavaScript? You can create a variable with type string by using inverted commas, a string variable, 1, 2, 3, any kind of thing in that variable. We go here. And what is the type of that variable? That is string. You can create a Boolean variable that can be like this. I'm going to create is running, and I'm going to assign true to it. A Boolean variable can either contain true or false. Now currently is running has true. If I assign false to that variable, now that is going to contain false. And if I use type of function on that variable, we're going to get Boolean. We can create arrays in the JavaScript too, just like that. We can use same variable keyword, var keyword, and we can use square brackets to create arrays. Now I'm going to create an array of fruits: apple, mango, and orange. Currently, if I see the value of R, we have 3 items in that array: apple, mango, and orange. And if I want to retrieve those items, I will have to use the square brackets operator. Now arrays start from 0, so on the 0 we have apple, on 1 we have mango, and 2 orange. So whichever element you want to retrieve, you will have to pass that index to the R. So I'm going to pass 2 if I want to get the orange. There we go. And if you pass any index in which we don't have any element, like 4, we will get undefined in JavaScript. So how can you create or add any other element in that array? You can simply do something like this. You can put any fruit like pineapple in that index where you want to add that. So if I check now our array has 4 elements, and it has pineapple at the index 3. Other types are another one is the object type that we can create. So to create an object, I'm just going to create a person object. To create an object, you can use curly braces, and simply like that you have that object. Now our person object is empty. I'm going to populate it. To add elements or like fields or data in an object, you're going to have use name value pairs like this. So a person can have a name. I'm going to type the property name and then a colon, and then give it a value like John. So we can also add more properties by separating them with comma like this, and age, and we can do something like that. Past, we can do any kind of thing like graduated, past, and assign a Boolean variable to it like true. If I check person now, this is an object and it has these properties: age, name, past. And if I want to retrieve any of those properties value, I just have to type that object's name, and using the dot operator, I can type any property's name and I can retrieve that value over here, just like that. Person.age, person.past. And if I want to change that property's value, I just have to use that property name with the dot operator and assign it a new value. Like I assign that age 23. And now person has the age 23. Okay, if we talk about operations in JavaScript, what can we do, like basic operations, and how can we do that in JavaScript? For that, we have operators, just like if we want to multiply two numbers or add two numbers or subtract them, we can do that by using those operators, just like 2 plus 2, we got 4. If we do 2 minus 1, we got 1. We also have multiply. 2 multiplied by 3, we got 6. And same goes for the divide. Now we can also do these operations not on these static numbers but variables also. So we create two variables, and b equals to 3. If we do a multiplied by b, we get 6. Now note that this does not change the value of a and b. This only gives us the result. Okay, if we check a, that is already 2, and b is also 3. It has not been changed. If we want to change any value of any variable, we have to use this assignment operator that we have been using all along from the start. We can do like a equals to a multiplied by 2, and what that will do is it will multiply the a value and by 2 and assign that value, new value, to the a itself, and now a will have 4. We can do same by doing b multiplied 3. Now this will multiply the b's variable value to 3 and assign that value to a. What then? That will be 9. So currently b has 3, so that will be 3 multiplied by 3, and that is going to be 9, and a is going to have 9. Now we have other kind of operators to simply do the math for us. Like if we want to do like change the variable a value by decreasing it by 1, just like this, we can do so simply by typing a minus minus. This is called decrement operator, and what this does is it changes the original a value by 1, just like this. It is now giving us the existing variable value of a because it is first outputting this value of a and then decreasing it by 1. If we check it again, it is going to be less than that. Now we can do the same with the increment operator. This is called increment, like 2 plus plus, and that is going to increase the value of a by 1, just like this. If we check a now, and that is going to be 8. If we want to get the latest value when decrementing or incrementing the value of a, we can do so by putting the operator at the start, just like this, and now it'll give us the value after the increasing it by 1. If we want to increase the value of a by 2, like this, a equals to a plus by 2, we can do so by using this shortcut operator, a plus equals to 2, and that'll change the original a value by 2. We can do so by minus equals to, and multiply equals to, and divide equals to. Now that'll be now these operators, which contain assignment operator as a shortcut, these will change the original variable's value. Now, what if we apply this operator to string variables? We have a variable b which has this string 1, and we have a variable c which have this string 2. Now, if we use plus operator on strings, what it is going to do is it'll concatenate these two strings and give us a resultant string that will be the result of those both strings. So if we save that result in a variable d, we will have a single string which will contain both of those strings. Okay. Now, if we do have a string b, and if we plus like add 2 to this string, what this will do is it'll convert the 2 to string and attach it at the end of that b string. It will give us string 12. It'll just simply do the string operation, convert the either side into the string and attach it with the other string. And we have other logical operators, and those are done on boolean or numerical value. So we have a variable a which contains true and b which has false. If we want to do AND operation on them, we have to use 2 ampersand for this. Now this is called AND operator. We can do a and b, and requires both of these operands to be true. Then it gives us true, but now b is false, so its result will be false. We have also got OR operator. To do OR operation, you have to type 2 pipe signs, just like this, and this will give us the OR operations result. We also have NOT. What NOT does is it changes the value of variable, of a boolean variable, to the alternate. If it is true, then it changes that to false, and if it false, then it changes that to true. Just like that. So we can also use these 3 operators in combination, just like this. Not a ampersand ampersand b, that is false because it changes the a to false, and we can do this and it'll give us true. So these are the operators, and we have also got comparison operators in JavaScript. If we have 2 numbers like b, 3, we can also do a is less than b. This will give us true because a is really less than b. And if we do a is greater than b, then this will give us false. And we can also do a is less than or equals to b. Yep, that'll give us true. And we can also do a is greater than or equals to b, then this will give us false. Because a is 2 and b is 3. If we do b equals to 2 also, sorry, a equals to 3. Now a and b both have 3. We can do a greater than equal to b. That is going to give us true. We can also do this by either side not containing the variable, just like this. That is giving us true because a is 3. And we also have not equals to, that compares does the comparison of both sides if they are not equal. So a is not equals to 3. That is going to give us false because a is equal to 3. And if we do a is not equal to 4, that's going to give us true. So there's other operator that is if we check that if a is equal to 3, then we have to use 2 assignment signs like equal signs. This is the equal operator. This is not the equal operator. This is the assignment operator. Again, this takes the right value and puts it in the left one. So if we have to check that if a is equals to 4, we can use 2 equal operators and check it just like that. So this is not equals to and this is equals to. And if we check if a equals to 3, that is true. And there is another operator which has 3 of these signs and which has like just like these. It also checks for the type. So if we have a equals to 2 and b equals to string 2, which is string. Now if we do a equals to b, that is going to give us true because a has 2 and b is also 2. What this does, it changes the right side to the number and compares it to the left side, and that is the same. But if we want to also check the type, including this, like strictly checking the type and the value, we will have to type a equals to b 3 times. That is going to give us false because a and b has the same value, but they are not of the same type because type of a is number and type of b is string. Okay. About conditions in JavaScript, we can run code on some kind of conditions in JavaScript, just like we can run code using variables or using any kind of condition on static numbers or something like strings, just like this. So we can do something like if. We have to use the if keyword, and we have to type parentheses and then braces. So the condition will go in here, and whatever code we write in here, that will run if that condition is true. Now, how can we do this? If we can do something like if 2 equals to 2. Now, if 2 is equal to 2, obviously we know that 2 is equal to 2. Then we can do something like create a variable a and put 3 in that. We can check for a, and that'll contain 3. Now, if we do something like if 2 is not equals to 2, obviously we know that is false. Now this code is not going to run. We can say something like a equals to 4. Now if 2 is not equals to 2, put 4 in the a. Now if we check a will contain 3 because that code didn't run. We can also do these conditions by variable and use different kinds of logical operators that we read in the last chapter. We can do something like if a is greater than 1, then put a equals to 0. We want to put 0 into the a. Now let's check a will contain 0 because a was greater than 1. Now we can do something like this on the strings too. We can create a variable time equals to, and we can say morning, and we can create another variable output and say something like this, or we can create a variable called welcome and keep it empty. Now let's say if time equals to morning, then we put welcome, then we put good morning in the welcome. So we check the welcome, it says good morning. Now what if something like we have night in the time? We can say something like if time equals to night, and we can do can say welcome equals to good night. That'll contain welcome. Welcome contains good morning because that is saying false. Okay, let's check time. Time has night, and we said if time equals to night. Okay, that we used the wrong operator there. Let's change that and correct that. Okay, let's use one assignment operator, and there it is. We have good night. Okay, what if we want to check the time and say it is morning and put welcome good morning? But if it is not morning, then we want to do something like good night. Okay, we want to do something like this. Not to morning. We say welcome equals to good night. Now these are two if conditions that negate each other. This is one condition that will become true, and then this will become false, because if the time is equals to morning, this code will run and this will not run. We can write it simply like this using the else statement. We can do, hey, if this statement is true, run this code, and if it's not, then run this code. Okay, we can do welcome equals to good night. Okay, now if we check welcome, that is good night, and we put morning in the time, and we run that statement again with the if else, and now it says good morning because time has morning now. Now we have another kind of if else, and that contains else if statement. What if we want to check for two cases here and put another case right there? Like we can do an evening. So if time has evening, we put the evening in time. Okay, now time has evening. We do something like if time is equals to morning, we put welcome equals to good morning, and else if time equals to evening, we put good evening, and else there is, and if these two conditions have not met, then just put good night in the welcome. There we go. So now we have good evening in the welcome. If we put night in the time and run that code again with the else if, we have good night in there because these two conditions didn't met the condition statement, and it ran the else code. Now we can do many else if in there. You can put a lot of else if in there, but if there are a lot of else if in there, you can use another kind of statement which is called switch. So to understand the switch, I am going to create a variable that is going to have a grade, and that is going to contain a grade A. Now we can output something like, we want to do output based on grade. So if someone has a grade A plus, we want to output excellent, and if they have grade A, we want to output good, and if they have grade B, we just want to output fair. How can we do that? We can do that by using switch. Switch accepts a variable which it checks in the parentheses. You can simply give it that variable grade, and after that you can come in here and put cases. So if that variable has a, you can simply do it like this. You have to put colon right there, and when that grade contains this a case, we can put in the welcome variable like excellent. And in the switch statement, you have to use break in there. For every case, we have to define a lot of cases like this. So if it has a plus, we are using excellent, and if we have a, then we do good and also break. What break does is it checks for a case, and if that case is not true, it moves on to another and checks for that case. If that case is true, it runs that code and it breaks, and it does not check for the other cases. That is what break does. Break saves us the time for not checking the other cases. Okay, we do something like case B. If it contains B, then put fair in that. Okay, and we also do break here. Okay, and let's run that. And we have currently A in the grade. Now the output is good. So if we put B in the grade and run that switch statement again, now we have fair in the welcome because grade contains A. And switch also provides us with the default case. If all the cases hasn't been true, we can run the default case. And how can we do that? We can simply do that by writing a switch statement, and at the end you just provide a default keyword, and just like all those cases, and write your code in there, welcome not a valid grade, and you also break in that default statement. Now let's just put something like this in the grade and run that switch statement again. It'll say not a valid grade. These are the conditional statements in the JavaScript. So what are loops? Loops are repetitional statements which lets you repeat your programming statements in many repetitions. Just like if you want to output something 100 times, 1,000 times, you can do it via loops. So how can we write loops in JavaScript? So first of all, there's a basic loop in JavaScript which is called while, and its syntax is you just put a while keyword over there, and in the parentheses you give a condition here, and after that you open those braces, and in those braces you put any kind of code that you want to run. So to demonstrate the while loop, I'm just going to create a variable with value 0, and I'm going to run this loop until a is less than 10. So I'm just going to use console.log. Now I know you don't know about console.log until now, but just remember, whatever I give this function, it will just be going to output that over here. So you can just simply write this and it is going to output it here. Now I'm just now if we see that while loop is going to run until a is less than 10. Now a is not changing, a is always going to be less than 10, then this loop is going to be run like infinity. So we will have to change a at every repetition. So we're just going to increment a whenever a repetition has been done. So it is going to come here and check that a is less than 10, a is 0, and it's going to print hello, and then it comes here and increases the a by 1. Now a is 1, and it goes up there again and checks the a is again less than 10, and then it's going to output again hello and increase the a by 1, and then a is going to be 2, and it will do it unless a is equals to or greater than 10. Let's hit enter and check. Say it prints the hello 10 times. Now there are other kind of loops over there, and one of them is for loop. In for loop, we can simply go on and put all of the things over there. First, there is the declaration of the variable that you're going to use for the condition. We can use b, and then separated by semicolon, you have that condition that b is less than 10, and again separating by semicolon, you can put a decrement or increment statement over there, and after that you can use braces and put any kind of code over here, just like this. Hello world from for loop. There we go. We have 10 for loop output statements over here. Now, before talking about other loops, I am going to demonstrate how can we use loops to print the items of an array. Now, let's suppose I have an array of fruits over here, and I have banana and an apple, and let's say apple, and I have a pineapple in there. So we have these fruits, and let's check the array. Yes, we have these 3 fruits in there. How can we print them? We can use while loop. Let's declare a variable that is going to be used as condition, and we have to run this loop until I is less than 3, because we have items from 0, 1, and 2. So we can simply go and do console.log, give us the print of fruits at I, and after that I plus plus. There we go, we have all of those fruits over here. Now if we run that while loop till the condition 2, we only have 2 elements. That is not printing right now because I is 2, I is already 2, and that is not running the loop. We have to initialize the I again and then run the loop again, and there we go, we have those 2 elements. Now we can also use for loop to do the array print. We can simply go and j is less than 3, a++, and we can do console.log fruits j, and there we go. We have all of those fruits in our output over here. Now we can use other kind of loop right now. There is for in loop and for off loop. Let's see what for off loop does. For off loop is very simple against these two loops. We can use the for off loop but to iterate over an array and get its items. To use for off, you can simply type for, and in the condition you do not give the condition, you simply use a var keyword and declare a new variable just like this. For item, you can give it any kind of name and then put off keyword, and after that you put your array name over there, and in every repetition it'll give you the item of that array, that element in the item variable. I can go on and print the item just like this, and there it is, we have that item. Now for in loop runs kind of same, but it gives us the indices. If we check for var index in fruits, it gives us the indices instead of items. See, and if we want to get that elements at those indices, we have to type the array name and give it that index that for loop gave us, and it'll give us the output. That's it for the loop, guys. Okay, what are functions? Functions are a piece of code that you want to run whenever you want, but there are a set of code, like set of statements, and you want to run them in line and in a consecutive way, just like any kind of complex statements, and you want to run them again and again somewhere in the code, and you just collect them in a function and run and call that function, and it will do that job for you. So how can we create a function? Let's create a simple function called sum, which will let's more simple than that. Let's create a function which will just welcome a user. So to create a function, just type the function keyword and a space and then the name of the function. I'm going to call it welcome, and after that you have to put 2 empty parentheses. This is for a simple function. Now after this function I will tell you what goes into these parentheses, but for now let's just put those two there, and after that we put the function body in those braces. In the function body you put any kind of thing, like I'm going to print hello world, and then also I'm going to print another statement which will say welcome to JavaScript. Now we declared a function and nothing happened because we just saved that function, like declared it, and now we are ready to use it. To call out a function, you have to type its name and type these parentheses operators in front of it to call that function. Now if you don't put those there, the function won't be called and it will simply just return that function again, like that. If you want to call that function, you put those 2 parentheses over there and hit enter, then the lines inside that function will be executed, and you can execute them whenever you want by calling that function. Now how can we create other types of functions? Let's create a function that takes some input from us. How can we take the input in a function? We create a function sum and it'll take 2 input variables from us. How can we do that? We do that in those 2 parentheses. We take 2 inputs. You have to suppose a name for those 2 inputs, and we can say I and j. You can separate these with comma, and these are called parameters of this function. So to put anything that our function takes, any input, you put that in the parentheses and call those parameters. And in the function body, you can use those parameters to do any kind of thing. Like I'm going to print I plus j. So that function is declared now. Now whatever we pass our function in the input in place of I and j, it will assume that value in I and j and use those as the placeholder and do all the operations on them as the function runs. So to give those input, I will call the function out, but now with the values. So I put 2 and 3. What this will do is this will place 2 in the I and 3 in the j, and it will do all of these statements, whatever is written in there, with I equals to 2 and j equals to 3. So hitting enter prints the 5. Let's redeclare the sum again. Now, functions can do one more thing. They can return us something. Just like if I create a sum function or a let's create an add function, it takes two things, A and B, and it returns. Now, to return a value from function, you have to type return, and after that you type anything that you want to return, any kind of number, any kind of string, or an expression. It will just solve that expression and return the resultant value when the function ends. Now whenever you call, remember, whenever you call the return statement in a function, it'll end that function over there. After that return statement, nothing will be run. So let's declare that add function and call out add 2 and 3, and it simply returns 5 just like that. But you see, it outputted the result. Some function only outputs the result, but add function, it returns the result. Now what we can do with the return statement, we can save this return value in another variable using the assignment operator like this. So add 3 and 4, and whatever is the return value, make sure you save it in the C. So we call out this value and we see C is now 7. Now if we simply call the same on sum function, it prints the 7, but if we check D is undefined because sum did not return any kind of value. So there is nothing in the D. So we can use this return and parameters in conjunction with to create a complex functions in JavaScript. We can also declare functions in arrow notation like this. So to create a sum function, we create a constant sum or a variable sum. You can create a constant variable, doesn't matter. And you call the function out like this, and you don't specify the name over here. Instead, you do it like this. You create a variable and assign the function to that variable. Simple, just like that. And sum takes two inputs, A and B, and returns A plus B. Now, if we call sum with 2 and 3, it will return us 5. And we can also create variables, functions in arrow notation, just like this. To create the function in an arrow notation, we simply call it arrow function. To create an arrow function, let's create the A, and you call simply those parentheses. That means you're creating a function, and after that you type an arrow with assignment operator and the greater than, just like this, and write the function's body. So we write console.log, hey, I'm an arrow function. So when we call out A, it will simply work like that. Now let's create a function sum, and okay, sum is already declared. Now let's change the sum to an arrow function. In the arrow function, you accept the parameters simply in the parentheses, just like that, and return that value just like that. So sum is going to be 2 and 3, that is 5. That works same like that. Now the thing is, we can, if we write an arrow function, let's write an arrow function called welcome, and we take a simple parameter name, a single parameter, simple and single parameter. You can omit those parentheses if you accept a single parameter in the function. So let's omit or remove those parentheses, and we can simply call out welcome plus name. There we go. Now we welcome John by calling John. There we go, welcome John. Welcome is an arrow function with one parameter that outputs the welcome and name. Now, we have already learned about objects and how we can create objects in JavaScript, but we have not learned how to create advanced type of objects in JavaScript. So first of all, I'm going to create a person object, and in that, I'm going to create different types of properties. Now, these key value pairs that we write, name and name should be like John or something. Now, this is the name is the person's property, and John is that property's value. We call this property. Now, person dot name will be John, and person dot age will be 22. And we can also do some kind of like fruits or favorites. We can do some kind of favorites, and we can give an array of simply apple, and we can do mango, and we can do bananas. Oh yes, do. So these are his favorite fruits, and we can also do something like uh can program, and then we can do false. John can't do the programming, but John can do the cooking. True. And we can also do something like if John is currently driving, and we can give a function inside of this, and this function will return or do some kind of thing like print, yes, John is driving. Hit enter. Now we got this whole lot of complex object, and we have name, which contains John and is driving. Method, we won't call this property because this is literally a function, so we will call this method. And we have favorites property, which has which is an array of items, and we have can program, can cook, and age properties, which have true, true, false, or 22. So what if we want to call the function? We say person dot is driving, and we put a parentheses to call that method of person, and do something like this, and that method is being called. John is driving. Now we can create a whole lot of different complex objects. Now there is one interesting thing in objects, and that is this keyword. Now if we create another function in person, like person dot change driving, and or we just simply create another property, driving equals to false, and let's see that person object now has a new property, driving, which is currently false, and we want to change this property by calling a method. So we go in there like person dot change, or we can create a method called drive, and in that we can add a new function. We say this dot driving equals to true. Now we call person dot drive, and then we check the person again, and we see that now driving is changed to true. And how is this possible? Because we didn't even change the driving, we set the driving to false. This is because we called the drive method, and in the drive method we refer to this person as this. Now this keyword in JavaScript or any other programming languages, this is a pointer. This pointer, it refers to different objects in different scopes. Now, scope is some kind of terminology in programming. Now, currently, you are in this function scope, and this function is of this person object. And when you are in this function, when you call this, you are referring to this person. Now, when you call this.driving, you are simply saying that person.driving should be true. Now, if I create another method called person.stopDriving, and in that we say this.driving equals to false. Now we check person.driving, it is currently true, and we call that method that we just created, and then check the driving again. We got the false because person has stopped driving. Okay, let's talk about classes. Classes are simple blueprints or maps you design, and then you create objects based on them in simple manner. Let's see how JavaScript offers us the object-oriented programming in a simpler way. To create a class, you just type a class keyword and then type the class name and simply type the braces to create the class body. Now in there, we can create two type of things. Simple one, the properties and methods. So first of all, let's type a property that a person can have. A person can have the first name and the last name. And our person can have a method like walk. And walk is the methods in the classes are simple functions that you can create, but you don't write the function keyword over here. You just simply type that method's name and with the parentheses, and you just type that method's body in the braces, and you can write any kind of parameters here and which you want to take. But right now our walk function or walk method does not take any kind of parameters. It just simply outputs that the person is walking. So we simply press enter and our class is now being declared. So we can now create objects out of this class. I'm just going to create an object, John, and I'm going to assign it a new. We can use the new keyword with conjunction to our class name. After that, we type our class name and call out its constructor, just like this. And in this line, we're creating a new object of person class and assigning that to John. The John is now basically an object of type person. And in that, we have those properties, first name and last name, which are undefined currently. And we also have that walk method. Let's call that walk method of John. John.walk. We call that method by using the dot operator. We can access these properties and methods using the dot operator, just like objects in JavaScript. And you call those methods by writing those parentheses after that method's name. And simply that method is called and it prints the person is walking. Now to change that John first name, we type in first name equals to John, and in the last name of John we write Doe. So to get that name, we type simply first name, we get that name, and we type dot last name, we get that name. Now there are more to classes right now than this. This is the simple class that we just declared on the basis of this simple person. Now we're going to create some more advanced type of classes. Okay, now there's more to classes than this. So let's create another class with the same name, person. And I'm going to type first name and last name in it. And also, oops, sorry, not the comma, last name and age. And also this time I'm going to create a constructor for class. Now, what is constructor? Constructor is a special type of method you just create by simply writing the constructor, and you simply kind of do anything like in it, like initialization. This method is called whenever the object of this class is being created. I'll show you right now. A person is just created, and when we press enter, and let's create a person A and create a person by calling the new keyword, and when we press enter, it already automatically calls the constructor of that class, and it prints that output. Now you can do any kind of initialization in there, and whatever you pass in here, that goes to the constructor. So let's create the person class again, and in this class let's do first name, last name, and call out the constructor, and let's take two parameters in it, first name in the f name, or last name in the l name, and let's assign those to our properties in there. Now we call those properties by using this keyword. Now in this method, this refers to our class person. Whatever the object that we're creating, this will refer to that object. So in that object, we assign the first name f name, and we assign the last name l name. Let's create a person. So var person b equals to new person, and we pass in John, and in the l name we pass Doe. Now if we check person b, we already have first name John and last name Doe. That is because we passed these information to the constructor, and constructor writes that information in those properties. We can do any kind of thing in there whenever we want to create a new object. Thank you guys for watching all the way through, and don't forget to subscribe in order to stay tuned for the latest courses on JavaScript and other programming tutorials.